Hey there, everybody. Before we jump into today's episode, I wanted to remind you that my course, Intro to Church Finances, is still open and you may purchase it. It's going to be closing here soon in the next day. So if you want to learn about church finances, need to learn about church finances, definitely listen to the previous podcast before this one to get all the goods on it. But otherwise, go to www.churchfinances.org/ICF course or look for the link in the show notes. And now let's get into today's episode. Hello, friend. Welcome to the Church Finance Administer Tax Podcast. My name is Michelle Brown, and I am honored to be your host. In this podcast, we will discuss topics to help you organize, maximize, and utilize your God-given talents and skills so you can do what you do best, which is take care of the business side of the church and do it with excellence. If you are a church secretary, bookkeeper, administrative assistant, or any other superpower title you've been given, then this is the podcast for you. So grab your notebook and pen, my friend, and your favorite beverage, and let's get ready to learn something cool today. Hello, and welcome to episode 73 of the podcast. We all know why we're here, so we're going to go ahead and dive right in, okay? This one's going to be interesting. So, in November of 2022, Senior Pastor Johnny, that's what we're just going to call him, Senior Pastor Johnny of a church in North Carolina said after over a decade of planning and saving for a new worship center, the church had finally raised the funds they needed and started the groundwork just a couple of months previously in September. Okay. However, the money to pay for the project was stolen by cyber scammers through email. Pastor Johnny said the church received an email from the contractor working on the new building for a partial payment due. Okay, nothing weird about that. The pastor said, and I'm going to quote what he said, how he said this. He said, immediately following that email was another email, which we thought was from the contractor. It had cloned basically that email, and it gave instructions on payment and included the invoice and everything, end quote. All right. He said that it was the cloned email that they responded to with the payment, and they thought everything was good to go until about a week and a half later. Then the contractor called inquiring about the payment. Well, obviously, they told him they'd already made the payment, and through further investigation, the reality set in that they had been scammed. And how much did they lose? Are you ready for this, people? $793,000. Gone. Okay, so since the FBI is charged with investigating computer-related crimes, the FBI is currently investigating this crime. And the church has also hired a cyber analyst to help prevent this from happening in the future. Can you imagine? Goodness gracious sakes alive, all right? As a tax professional, I am required by the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC, to take regular ongoing cyber awareness training. And I also have to have specific software in place to protect client data per FTC and IRS requirements. So today, I am going to share some practical tips that I have learned from my cybersecurity training. My hope is that you can use this information to keep your church or organization safe from the same experience that this church unfortunately had. All right, so let's get started. We're going to be really practical today. Number one, always back up your data. Why? Because malicious emails are not just for trying to get to your bank accounts, but to access your data as well. I have said that technology will be the death of me before anything else because it is so frustrating. Oh my gosh, I can get headaches and just have to take a break and go for a walk because technology stresses me out. But yet it has become necessary in any business or organization today, okay? I recommend having an off-site copy of your backups simply because life happens. A tornado, a flood, or a fire could take out your building, and there goes your backup, all right? So number one, always do your backup. Number two, be aware of suspicious emails, and this is where we're going to camp for the rest of this, all right? But I want to make sure you're doing a backup first, and then be aware of suspicious emails. So according to IBM, which is an American multinational technology company that provides services and products to help businesses solve problems, Phishing is a type of cyber attack that uses fraudulent emails, text messages, phone calls, or websites to trick you into sharing sensitive data, downloading malware, or otherwise exposing themselves to cybercrime. All right. So here are 7 signs that the email you received is a phishing attempt. Okay. And that's phishing with a PH, not an F. Okay. So, all right. Number 1. The number 1 thing that you need to do if you're unsure if something is legit or not is check the sender's email. If it does not match the company's legitimate domain name, it's not legit. All right. So here's an example. Just this week, I received an email, supposedly, quote unquote, from the IRS regarding a failed tax payment. The sender's email address was info@farm-p.com and not mail@directpay.irs.gov like it should have been. Okay. The email had virtually the same look as the email confirmations you receive when you make a tax payment. But number 1, I knew I had not made a tax payment in the past week. And number 2, I knew to automatically look at the return address when I said, why am I getting this? All right. And you need to do the same. If you are confused as to why you received the email, always start with looking at the sender's email address if it doesn't match what it should. Okay. And you can just hover over the sender's email to see the whole long thing. And usually it's just gibberish. All right. So if you do that, it doesn't match what it should, send it to spam, send it to your IT guy, whatever you need to do with that. Just do not click any links on it. Okay. All right, number 2, look at the subject line. If it's too good to be true, unexpected, contains misspelled words, or attacks your emotions or sense of urgency, it may be a phishing scam. Again, refer back to the sender's address. Number 3, who is the greeting addressed to? If the sender is supposed to know who you are, then the email should be addressed to you and not just a generic dear sir or madam or valued customer, or sometimes it's just totally blank. All right. Or I've seen them put like hallmarktax.com, they'll say dear Hallmark Tax. Hallmark Tax is not my name. That's my business name, but not my name. Okay. Number 4, misspelled words, improper punctuation, and grammar mistakes are all red flags that you are being attacked. That one is huge. Besides the checking the email address, the sender's email address, if you just read through some of this stuff, again, don't click on anything. You're like, seriously, do you not know how to spell? Or it's grammar that you can tell is somebody that's trying to learn how to speak English, don't click on it. Always look for those misspelled words or that improper punctuation. All right. Number 5, is there a sense of urgency or a pull on your emotions? So content creators, which I do, a content creator is I create a podcast, I create blogs, I created a course. Okay, so we're taught to put a sense of urgency on our products to get you to buy. Like my current course, Intro to Church Finances, it ends this round. It ends at midnight on Wednesday night, July 31st. Okay, after that, you can't buy it until I launch it the next time. So there's a sense of urgency, all right? But so it can be legit, but it can also be an attempt to steal your information from somebody who's not a legitimate business, all right? Again, are you expecting to hear from this person or company? If not, send it to spam, okay? Number 6, are there any links to external websites? Do the links go to legitimate websites, or is it some funky URL given? All right, again, sometimes these are legit, but if you're unsure, never click on any link within an email unless you are absolutely sure that you can trust the site and are expecting an email with a link for the same purpose. So another example is, and this has happened several times, is my email host occasionally sends an email, and I know who that's supposed to be from, okay? But I know what they send in emails. Well, then all of a sudden, I started getting emails that said it was from that same company, but saying that my login had been compromised or my account had been compromised and I needed to click this link or whatever, okay? Well, I always go back up and look, and of course, number 1, checking that sender's return address, it did not match. So then I picked up the phone, or you can hit the chat bot or whatever way that you contact. If it's a company that you know is a legitimate company, like my email service provider is, but this was a suspicious email that didn't look like it was coming from them, contact the company and say, hey, I got this weird email. Did you send this to me? It is okay for you to do that, and it's always better to be safe than sorry. Of course, it was not a legitimate email from them. They said the very first thing that they even told me was, did you check the sender's email address? Did it come from, at And I said, no. They said, then it's not from us. Okay. And then finally, attachments. Beware of attachments that end in .exe. And what that is, that's a program file that contains instructions for a computer's central processing unit to run a program. Okay, they're trying to attach and run a program on your computer. A .bat it contains a series of commands that are executed in sequence when the file is run. All right, so it allows you to automate tasks by running multiple commands without manual intervention. Okay, so they put something on your computer and it just automatically does tasks one after the other. All right, and then a macro enabled office file. It can do almost anything that other malware can do to your system, including emulating ransomware, stealing your data, and emailing itself out to your contacts. All right, so kind of like, think about like Facebook when they clone your account and they start sending messages to all of your contacts, and they think it's coming from you. That's what this will do. Okay, so again, never ever ever click on attachments from people you don't know. Again, I get this type of email all the time, almost daily, from people saying that they want me to prepare their taxes and they have attached a copy of their prior year's return for review. I don't think so, Scooter. All right, I have a brain. I'm going to use it. I'm not that dumb. But it's tempting when I first got into the business to say, ooh, somebody wants me to do their taxes. But you learn real quick. Thankfully, I didn't click on it. But these programs, what they do is they attach ransomware or malware to your computers. All right. So if you've heard these terms, malware or ransomware, I hear them all the time, but I never took the time to look them up until I was getting ready for this podcast. So I'm going to tell you what the difference is. Okay. Malware is short for malicious software. It refers to any intrusive software developed by cyber criminals, often called hackers, to steal data and damage or destroy computers and computer systems. Examples of common malware include viruses, worms, Trojan viruses, spyware, adware, and ransomware. Okay, so I've heard that term. I've heard, the Trojan virus and worms and all this stuff, but that's just all different types of malware. Ransomware is a type of malware attack in which the attacker locks and encrypts your data, important files, and then demands payment to unlock and decrypt the file. Okay? People are just jerks. I'm like, seriously, do you not have something to better spend your time doing? Okay? So what's the moral of the story? What is the point for going through all this? All right? If you're unsure, don't click on anything in the email and immediately send it to spam or delete it off your computer. And if you have an IT person, send it to them for proper handling. All right. You can also do work the old-fashioned way. It is possible to pick up the phone, call the person who supposedly sent it to you. Again, if you know them and are expecting communication from them, pick up the phone and call like I did and say, did you send me this email? Is this legitimate? Yes or no? All right. So another lesson to learn, and a really tough one for this church: never pay a $793 invoice via ACH. Seriously, I cannot even fathom it. Can you just imagine being this poor secretary or their treasurer or whoever it was that clicked that button and paid this payment? It had to have made them sick to their stomach. Goodness gracious. So again, be old-fashioned. Write a check. There's no way I would pay this size of invoice electronically. It's just not going to happen. You can either accept my check, or if you don't accept my check, we will go to the bank and get a cashier's check and send that check to you via secure email or not email, secure mail, UPS or FedEx, it is worth it to pay the fee to make sure it gets there safe. And just don't pay that type of invoice via email links, all right? I can bet you that this church will never, ever, ever, till Jesus comes back, make that same mistake, okay? All right, so that's a wrap. I thought, wow, how awful for this church. And they've had to halt construction on this because, it wiped out their account, so they're having to try to raise the funds so that they can start construction on their sanctuary again. How awful, awful, awful. Okay, so thank you for sharing your time with me today. I do hope that this was helpful to you. I do hope if this prevents this from happening to you, this has been a good episode. Let's always remember to strive to make an impact and not just an income, and to always look your best, do your best, and be your best. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Thanks again for listening today. If you haven't joined my free Facebook community yet, or you want to check out the course, the Intro to Church Finances course, the link is in the show notes. And please know that no matter what is going on in your part of the world, God's got you. Be blessed, my friend.